Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. In today's video, I present to you the 5 books I'm thankful for. Thanksgiving is 3 days away. I was thinking I wanted to do a special kind of video to, one, show my appreciation and love and gratitude for books, and my appreciation and gratitude for you guys, for my YouTube subscribers, my viewers. And I wanted to share with you 5 books that are very, very special to me, that when I think of how happy I am to live in a world that has books, these are the books that I feel can kind of encompass my gratitude, that I feel are the whole reason why I love reading to begin with. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. I would love to know what books you're thankful for. I would love for you to share that with me in the comments below. I'd love to connect with you there, know a little bit more about those books that you are happy exist, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and start us off. So my list of 5 books is in some sort of chronological order according to my life, like stages of my life. That's kind of how I put it together. And I'm just going to share with you the book and share with you the reasons why I'm thankful for this book, or I am grateful that these books exist. The first book that I am thankful for is Halloween Party by R.L. Stine, which is a part of the Fear Street collection. I have mentioned before on my channel that I have been a lifelong reader. I grew up with my mom reading to me. I grew up in a home of books. I grew up loving books. And when I was a little kid, I loved my Babysitter's Club books and my Choose Your Own Adventure books. And I just feel like in life, there have been stages where I have read more than others, right? And I think a lot of you can relate to that. And the reason I am so thankful and appreciative of Halloween Party is because I always recall my mom being like a big reader. So every week when we'd go to the mall, my dad would always tell her, when we would go to Walden Books, which was in our local mall, he would tell her, oh, pick a couple Agatha Christie's that you're missing and I'll get them for you. And so she'd go and I'd look at them with her and I'd help her pick them out. But I never had that. Like, I never really had a series that, or an author that I kind of would look at the shelf and kind of see if there were any new ones out or if they had restocked anything I didn't have. I never had that. I kind of just looked around and whatever book like drew my attention, I would pick out. And a lot of the books that I read as I was younger, I either got through my Scholastic Book Fair or I got from my local library. So I never really had a book that I would look for in the bookstore to see if they had new ones up until the Halloween Party. So while my mom was looking, and we're talking about like the 90s, this is like circa 1990 something, right? I remember my mom looking at her Agatha Christie books, and then I diverted and I started looking at the YA section. I think this was YA horror or whatever. It was a section of the bookstore that I had never gone to. I think I usually stayed in the middle grade or in the little kids section, but something led me, and I was preteen at this age. I think I was a preteen, so these books were probably older, for too old for me, right? But I discovered like that they had these books that all sounded scary, right? So I'm like, oh, Halloween Party, I love Halloween. And so I remember pulling this off the shelf. And by the way, this is like my original copy because it has like my name and everything inside. It's tattered and it's been taped and all of that, so it's very special to me. But I remember I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is like awesome. And I was scared that maybe my parents were not going to let me get it because it was like scary looking, but they obviously did. My parents were never ones to censor what I read, right? And I'm glad they didn't. But I remember getting it and I took it home. My dad bought it for me and I took it home and I remember I read it the same day. Like, and then for the next week, I was begging my parents to take me back to Walden Books because now I didn't even recall if Fear Street was like a series or if there were more books like this. And so when I went the next time, and I don't even think I waited the week to go on the weekend, I think my parents took me like within the week, right? Like that same week we went after school. And I remember seeing like there were a bunch of these Fear Street books, and that just started this obsession. And I very quickly acquired all the books. I very quickly read all the books. I very quickly expanded to the point horror books, to the Christopher Pike books, to all the other books that were similar to this. And to this day, I have such beautiful memories when it comes to my first time buying like one of these spooky books for myself. And this started my obsession with R.L. Stein books, the Fear Street books. I still have all my collection of books. They're one of my prized possessions. I have a special place, as most of you maybe have seen if you've seen my library tours. I have a special bookcase just for those books. That's why I'm so thankful for Halloween Party, because it kind of started this, passion of mine for buying books and visiting my bookstore and always walking out with a book or two that I really wanted to read. So, the second book that I am incredibly thankful for and grateful for is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This book is very special to me because single-handedly, I think this is the book that showed me or taught me that I wanted to be an English teacher. So I've always wanted to be a teacher. I think since I was a little kid, I always knew I wanted to teach. I remember having a chalkboard as one of my early gifts when I was a little kid, and I would practice on the chalkboard. I would play teacher. My mom was always willing to be a good student and pretend, to play school with me when I was little. And I always knew I wanted to teach. I didn't know what grade level I wanted to do or what subject matter or whatnot, but I knew I wanted to go into education. And for a long time, I thought maybe elementary education is something I wanted to pursue. But then I remember it was my senior year in high school when I was taking AP literature, and my teacher assigned us Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte as our winter break read. So, first of all, our winter break vacation was 2 weeks long, right? Second of all, if you are familiar with Jane Eyre, you know how lengthy of a book this is. And most of my classmates groaned and they were so upset that they had to read this entire thing during our Christmas break, right? Many of us were traveling. Many of us didn't think, we could actually read this in 2 weeks. Like, who can read, right? And annotate this entire thing within 2 weeks of a vacation when you also have to prep for the holidays and do everything like that. I was excited. I didn't find it daunting. I didn't think I'd be able to finish it. Like, I was like, oh my god, well, we're gonna see how this goes. I kid you not. Like, I believe we she checked the books out to us, and like, she had a class set of them. I remember it was like a yellow and brown kind of cover, right? And she checked them out to us, and we took them home, and vacation started. And then, I was like, okay, let me get started. I think I went to my grandma's house, and I was there with her for a little bit. My grandma was sick at the time, and I said, okay, let me get started while I'm here kind of taking care of my grandma, while my mom was at work. Let me just, start reading my book. And I remember I took out, my stuff, and I sat down to read, and the minutes turned to hours, and I flipped and flipped and flipped pages. And I remember at one moment saying, what? Like, how how have I gotten 200 pages into this, like, in one sitting? Needless to say, I finished Jane Eyre within like 2 or 3 days, right? And I was in love. I was in love with this world. I was in love with the language. I was in love with the characters. I was in love with the love story. I said to myself, wow, like, if I can't wait to discuss this, like, I can't wait to talk to my teacher about it. I can't wait to see if my peers are reading it, if they're enjoying it. And I knew from that moment that that's all I kind of wanted to do in my life. I wanted to read books like these and talk about them with others, like, and analyze the language and look at the beautiful quotes. So this experience, this book pretty much solidified for me that I wanted to be an English teacher. And I remember coming back January, and I knew for sure that this is what I wanted, that I wanted to major in English, that I wanted to study English education, that I wanted to take all these classes where I could read all these books and analyze them. And, that's what I knew for sure. So, this is why Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte holds such a special place in my heart. So, the third book I am thankful for is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I'm sure it's not a surprise, right, that this book is here when I've mentioned this book so many times in my channel as being my favorite book of all time, as being my most recommended book, all that. But for this video, I wanted to tell you exactly why I'm so thankful for this book, or what this book kind of means or represents for me as a reader, as a person, all of that. Rebecca's one of those books that, believe it or not, came into my life well after I was a seasoned reader. Believe it or not, I never read this in high school. I majored in English. I went through all of the courses where I had to read the most obscure, the most popular, the most diverse books, and I never read Rebecca. I never took a class where I was assigned Rebecca. I never had anyone talk to me about Rebecca. That is the reason I'm so thankful for this book, because it came into my life after I was already a seasoned reader, and I was not expecting a book to have such an impact in my life after I had read so many impactful things. I had already gone through years and years of schooling, of teaching, and I had never read this book. And I thought I had read everything I could possibly read that could be of, impact or could be life-changing, right? I mean, after you're very well read, the more you read, not the less impact books have, but you kind of have read everything that's like influential, or at least you feel that way, right? So, what this book did for me was reignite my curiosity and my passion for reading things that I've never read before, because my favorite book could still be somewhere out there unread. That's what Rebecca represents to me. That this, I could feel this for another book that I have yet to read. And how could I go throughout my life without having read a Rebecca? Whatever Rebecca means to me. So that's probably why this is so special to me. I could not conceive a world where I had not read this. And I feel like it had always kind of danced around me. I remember when I was a little kid, and I think I've talked about this in my channel very briefly before, but I remember being a little kid and I watched that movie, Don't Look Now. And that movie had such an impact on me. Like, it scared me. I thought it was just the wildest of films, right? And then when years later, I encountered that movie again and I was like, wow, I saw that as a little kid. And I researched it and I was an adult, right? And I was like, oh, that's a story by Daphne du Maurier. How interesting. And then I read up on Daphne du Maurier. I bought myself the story version of Don't Look Now, or I believe it's in a collection of works that I have it. And never did I get Rebecca. And I remember my mom talking to me about Rebecca. I remember my mom saying, oh my gosh, that novel Rebecca is like incredible. I read that when I was young or whatnot. And my mom was always a reader from an early age. And so it's not unusual for her to say that. She's said that about so many books that she's passionate about, from her youth, like Little Women and The Diary of Anne Frank and Rebecca. So I've never really made it a point to read all these books that my mom is obsessed with, although I might, and that's probably a good vlog. But regardless, I knew she had always told me, oh yes, that novel Rebecca. Oh yes, Rebecca. Like, I remember her talking about it, but I had never, first of all, I didn't even think it was like of such literary merit. I thought maybe it was like one of those like uh, romance novels or something. I had no idea. But when I made the connection that it was by the same author of Don't Look Now, and I had seen that movie and been frightened, I was like, oh, maybe this has like some horror elements or some scary elements. And that's always something that I've wanted to read or enjoyed reading. That already was an interesting combination. But finally, I decided on my own, like, I think I need to read this book, Rebecca. Like, I've been, hearing about it, and I just picked it up. I picked it up, and I remember I picked it up on audio the first time that I read it. The moment that I heard her read the opening line, right? Like the audiobook narrator read that opening line, which of course is back here. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. The moment I read that, I was enraptured. I was enamored. I don't know. I was entranced and I said, wow, like what is this? I have to get through this whole book. And I remember finishing the audiobook immediately. And then I remember buying the physical copy and reading it right after again. And that's where my obsession with this began. But I think that's why this is so special to me. Of course, I love everything about it. And I've talked about how it defines my taste as a reader because, it's like a mystery, but it's also like very gothic, and the setting is like such an important thing, those are all things I love, right? And it's like a haunting of sorts, and all of that. I love all of that. But I think what I love most about this, or what I'm so thankful for, is that I discovered this on my own pretty much, or it came into my life when I picked it out, right? When I was like, okay, I need to read this. And it just shocked me that this was a book that I had never read and that could be so special to me. So it forever gives me hope that I'm still going to continue finding books that move me and shape me as much as this one has. So the fourth book on this list is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon Maguire. I'm thankful for this book because this book I read as an adult, and I read it because of its trope, portal fiction, which is something that I love. But my favorite part of this is reading this as an adult and being reminded of the whimsical nature of children, of being reminded how beautifully brave and innocent and naive and strong children can be. And so that is my favorite part about Every Heart a Doorway. And I use this Every Heart a Doorway as like the entry level, right? It's like the first book in the series. So obviously this is the one I'm picking. But there are other books that have become my favorites in the series, but if it were not for this first book, I clearly, would have read those. So that's why I'm so thankful for this book, because it has introduced me to some of the most beautiful, imaginative worlds. It has reminded me as an adult the beauty of being a child, all the wonderful things about being young and innocent, and that's what this book kind of represents to me. And I think if I would have read this as a little kid, which I wouldn't have, right, because it didn't exist, but if I were a child reading it, I think it wouldn't have that same impact, because as adults we know the beauty of innocence and the beauty of um, children who want to belong, and children who are seeking a home, and who want to feel like they have discovered a place that is their own. So all of those elements obviously are in this book. And that's why this is a book I'm incredibly thankful for. And it's a series that I will read my entire life. I will continue reading all of these as they come out every year. And I hope she never stops writing them. And I will never stop buying them. And I will never stop reading them, because they just make me feel something so beautiful inside. And I like that. I like that feeling. And lastly, book number 5 that I want to share with you as a book that I am thankful for. That book is Devotions by Mary Oliver. So I have been a fan of Mary Oliver's for a long time. I have taught her poetry before. I always thought it was like very beautiful. I love the nature references. I had never really read more than like 5 or 6 of her poems. It wasn't until last December that I started reading Devotions that I understood the magnitude of this book. So first I'll tell you, Devotions is a collection of her poetry, right? So it's all a collection of her poetry, but it is pulled, all the poems are pulled from all of her various poetry collections. So there's a little bit of each of those books. So I like that it's the most complete sampling of her poetry. Um, but the reason why I'm so thankful for this book is that this book was there for me when I needed it the most. So, and this is something I don't really talk about in my channel, but I do want to talk about it in this video just briefly and tell you why this is so important for me, in case you are also experiencing the need for this book. So last December was the worst month of my life. I lost my father last December, and it was the worst pain I had ever felt in my entire life. And I decided that I should pick up devotions. So I'd had this book in my collection for a really long time, being a fan of Mary Oliver's, and I had never read this actual collection. So I decided that in this moment of loss, I thought that I should reach for this book. Something told me that this would make, you know, my pain less or make me understand more what I was feeling. So I picked up Mary Oliver's devotions, and I remember I'd go outside to my patio each morning, and it was December, so it was already cool. And I remember sitting out there with my blanket and reading carefully each of these poems. And I read this book through my entire grieving process last December, and I didn't rush it. It's something that I didn't want to finish quickly like that. I would read each of the poems, and then I would reflect on them, and I'd write like little notes to myself, and I would connect to it. And when I felt like I was good, then I would come back inside and go about my day. And it was something that I read that entire month with intention, with purpose. And I would reach out to this book when I needed that comfort. And it was like a warm hug. It was like understanding of the way the world works. It helped me make sense of my pain and what I was going through, and it made me understand without it being like explicitly about death, right? Like obviously there are some poems that talk about death, but this mostly talks about the cycles of life and our position in the world, and knowing that we are part of something that is so much bigger, and just valuing life in general and our existence and our memories and all of that. So this book was able to do that for me in such a beautiful, simple way. And I think it's because it's so heavy centered on nature and we are part of nature. And, that kind of made me feel like I understood. Like my pain was my pain, but I understood it. And I understood that it's a pain that everyone can relate to and it's something universal. And so this book is just everything to me. And although I do have a lot of plans for what I want to read in this upcoming December, it will be a year that I read this, so I do want to go back and I think I'll reread some. I have color coordinated certain things, so I do want to go back to at least all of the gold tabbed poems because those are very special to me. So I think I want to do like a reread of this or go back to this and think and reflect and all of that. But if there's one book I'm incredibly thankful for, it's Devotions by Mary Oliver. And if you too feel the need for like a warm hug, or you feel like you have gone through or are going through difficult moments, I really do hope Devotions can be there for you as it was there for me. And I think it's like just the perfect answer for when we are feeling like we don't have answers. And yeah, that's why Mary Oliver's Devotion is the book that I am most thankful for this Thanksgiving season. And yeah, those are the 5 books that I'm so appreciative of, that I hold dear to my heart. And I would love to hear about the books you're thankful for. So if you would like to chat with me in the comments down below, I would like to have some conversations about that. And maybe those special books for you are books that will be special for me too, or maybe they're my next Rebecca, or who knows, right? So I'd love to talk to you in the comments down below. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed, and just know that I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for you watching this video. I'm thankful that I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people in these 9 months that I have been on BookTube. I couldn't be happier. I've met so many people and connected with so many people and discovered so many new books. And I can't tell you enough how grateful I am for you, my viewers, and these books. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope these next couple days are wonderful for you and Thanksgiving treats you well. And I'm going to push forth a lot more content within the next week or so. So I look forward to catching you in my next video. Bye!